Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Wednesday. Denmark and Greenland united at the White House.
We didn't manage to change the American position.
The exchange behind closed doors and why it matters to Canadians.
Pour le bien de mon parti et surtout pour le bien du Québec.
Shake up in Quebec. What prompted the Premier to call it quits?
Why did you want to do this interview?
I want people to know that you can't judge anybody.
Plus, a candid and exclusive television interview with the former spouse of Canada's worst mass shooter.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Greenland was the focus of a pivotal meeting at the White House today, with foreign ministers from Denmark and Greenland holding face-to-face talks with U.S. officials. It comes as Denmark sends more troops to the semi-autonomous island after Donald Trump appears unwilling to tone down the takeover rhetoric. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon has been following developments today. Okay, Joy, how did that meeting go?
Well, Sandy, that delegation from Denmark and Greenland came to the White House with a message to the United States. Greenland is not for sale, no matter what President Donald Trump says. After months of fielding threats, Denmark ramped up its military presence in Greenland with the help of its NATO neighbors, Air Force, Navy, and Sweden sending in troops, part of a promise to beef up Arctic defense. And to counter President Donald Trump's threats, for months Trump insisted the mineral-rich island is vital to U.S. national security, posting, "It is vital for the Golden Dome that we are building," referring to his missile defense system. If we don't, Russia or China will, and that is not going to happen. The White House mocking what it calls Greenland's defenses, posting this image of sled dogs.
It is not easy to think innovative about solutions when you wake up every morning to different threats.
We're going to see what happens, but we need it.
After their White House meeting, the Danish minister insists China and Russia are not immediate threats, but will look for ways to accommodate Trump's concerns.
Of course, we share, to some extent, his concerns. There is definitely a new security situation in the Arctic and the high north.
Adding, it's totally unacceptable not to respect Greenland's sovereignty. And Trump's ultimatums, well, they're not going over well with Greenlanders.
The United States will try to buy Greenland, or they will invade it.
I'm afraid that he will destroy the NATO alliance, and he threatens our kingdom and the Greenlanders, and I really, really don't like that. Sandy, the delegation says it will meet with the Trump administration again in hopes of strengthening cooperation, but with one big red line: as allies and not owned by the United States. Sandy.
All right, Joy, thank you. Now, the situation with the U.S. and Greenland raises several questions, like what does Canada's north look like when it comes to Arctic defense, and how vulnerable is this country to Donald Trump's annexation plans? We asked CTV's Heather Wright to focus on this today. Okay, Heather, tell us who you've been talking to.
Well, Sandy, there is certainly concern among some of the people I spoke with today, worried not only for security and sovereignty in the north, but also for what these threats to a NATO ally might mean for the future of the alliance.
Canada's Arctic region makes up roughly 40% of the country's total landmass. It's huge and it's hard to secure.
In the beginning, when Trump wanted to buy Greenland, I just laughed that off because it was so absurd. That
Ayu Peter is a Greenlander who lives in Iqaluit. She still thinks Donald Trump's threats to take Greenland are absurd, but now she takes him seriously and thinks all of the Arctic is at risk.
Canada is right in the middle between Greenland and the United States. He's going to want to also take over Canada.
The federal government has pledged billions of dollars in new defense spending, including money for Arctic security. But in such a vast and mostly uninhabited area, military analysts say defense spending is not enough to assert Canadian sovereignty in the north.
It's really a whole of society approach, working with Northerners, working with territorial governments and the Indigenous people that live in the region to make sure that they have access to the same services.
Canada is set to hit NATO's 2% target this year, but experts say Trump's saber-rattling against NATO members presents a threat to the future of the alliance at a time when it's needed.
This is exactly the time that we need to stand together with our allies, that NATO needs to be very effective and very strong and serve as a deterrent so that Putin won't miscalculate and go even further.
The U.S. ambassador to Canada was asked today whether Trump has his sights set on Canada's Arctic as a way to bolster North American security. He said Canada, the United States, and Finland are all coordinating defense closely, ensuring they are, quote, lockstep when it comes to Arctic security. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Heather Wright. Bad headlines, plummeting popularity, dropping poll numbers. It's no surprise to Quebec pundits that Premier François Legault is resigning. He says it's for the good of the party, but comes at politically difficult times for him. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin now on the timing and what happens next. Jen?
Yes, Andy, this is a resignation that is shaking the political landscape here in Quebec, one that was already shifting. Premier François Legault said it was the honor of a lifetime to lead Quebec.
Surtout pour le bien du Québec.
But that for the good of his party and above all for his province, it was time to step down, that Quebecers want change.
Maybe it's just time to move on, find like a new voice.
I think he didn't do that bad. At the end, he wasn't so popular.
Once the most popular premier across Canada, Legault has now faced months of spiraling poll results, falling to last place in Quebec.
On prépare un gouvernement.
The Parti québécois, led by Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and vowing to hold another referendum, is in the lead. Before jumping into politics, Legault co-founded Air Transat. He later co-founded his party, the Coalition Avenir Québec, or CAQ. He won the first of two majority mandates in 2018 with a promise to set aside the separatist federalist divide. His party brought in a law on secularism and led Quebec through the COVID pandemic. But his dominant run began to unravel after his second election over a series of crises. In the fall, he faced off against doctors over remuneration and conditions. Two political allies, close friends, left his party over the dispute. Today, politicians of all stripes praise Legault's dedication to Quebecers over a quarter of a century in public life.
He left his mark in Quebec politics, and for sure, with the decisions that he made, he shaped the future of Quebec.
Legault has pledged to stay on until a new leader is chosen. This as the Quebec Liberals, too, are looking for a new leader. They're in disarray just 9 months before the next election here. Sandy.
All right, CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin. Horrific details are emerging from Iran now that partial phone service has been restored of the arbitrary detention of protesters, fast trials, and planned executions. Activists say more than 2,500 Iranians have been killed by the regime. CTV's Adrian Gobriel now on this and the advisory from Global Affairs for Canadians to leave.
As smoke rises above the streets of Tehran and protesters clashed with security forces, Global Affairs Canada is issuing a clear warning to Canadians in Iran. Get out of the country immediately.
This is a very real threat, and it is escalating.
On January 8th, Iran's government cut off the country from the internet. Since then, Iranians have been risking their lives to share these images of brutality with the world. Today, Iran's judiciary had signaled that trials and the execution of protesters would be fast-tracked despite warnings of a military response from U.S. President Donald Trump. Personnel at a key U.S. military base in Qatar have been advised to evacuate by tonight as concerns of a repeat attack on American troops there begin to escalate.
The fact that, the United States has pulled out some of their troops in Qatar is indicative that they think that that threat is real. They have some intelligence, and they're probably got things planned to attack, Iran. And, what are they going to attack? It could be military sites. It could be infrastructure. But we should expect something.
With more than 2,500 believed to be dead, Iran hasn't seen this level of violence since the chaos surrounding the country's 1979 Islamic Revolution. The protests broke out on December 28th after the collapse of Iran's currency, as the country's economy was squeezed by international sanctions levied in part over its nuclear program. Holding up signs of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, thousands took to the streets outside Tehran University for a pro-government mass funeral on Wednesday, as caskets draped in the country's flag, said to be carrying the bodies of approximately 100 security officials and civilians killed in the clashes, were paraded down the streets. Though this is a country far from united, there is a shared concern, as some military experts warn, targeted U.S. strikes on Iran may be imminent. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Toronto.
A historic moment with a Canadian Prime Minister back on Chinese soil for the first time in almost a decade. Trade, energy, and agriculture are on the table, with Mark Carney hoping for a breakthrough on those punishing tariffs. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver is traveling with the Prime Minister. All right, Annie, talk to us about this important trip.
Sandy, the Prime Minister has come to China hoping to revive a relationship he hopes will boost the Canadian economy. It wasn't long ago that Canada called China a disruptive power. Now the language has softened as Prime Minister Mark Carney's government looks to bring stability back to a frigid diplomatic relationship.
This is a new government with a new Prime Minister, a new foreign policy. In this moment of economic stress for our country, it is necessary for us to diversify our trading partners.
And Carney has made it clear that rethinking includes increasing non-U.S. exports through deeper partnerships with countries like China. And over the next few days, the Prime Minister will be pitching Canada to business and government leaders as a place to invest.
I think that this was a really important opportunity to reset the relationship at a time when we're obviously dealing with a much tougher United States and where our Canadian national interests have to be rethought.
A key area of debate and likely disagreement, Canadian tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and Chinese tariffs on Canadian canola products. Government officials say it's reasonable to expect progress on so-called trade irritants, but the definitive removal of tariffs is unlikely.
Our ultimate goal is to restore market access to China, have more smoother, predictable trade with our number 2 export market. And so we're looking for signs of progress and resolution on that front.
While that resolution may not happen, Ottawa is framing this visit as a stepping stone in a larger plan to stabilize relations and to reopen normal lines of communications. Sandy?
All right, Annie in Beijing. Thank you, Annie. At least 32 people were killed and dozens more injured after a construction crane collapsed onto a fast-moving train in Thailand. The crane derailed the passenger train and crushed several of the rail cars, one of which caught fire. The country's transport minister says nearly 200 people were on board. Thailand State Railway has launched an investigation. The company responsible for the crane says it will provide compensation and relief to the injured and families of victims. A dangerous train surfing stunt in San Diego was caught on camera and resulted in arrests. 2 people were spotted on top of this rail car traveling at more than 140 kilometers an hour. After the dangerous ride, police arrested 2 18-year-olds. Now, high-speed stunts in New York have led to 5 deaths and dozens of injuries. An overnight shooting in Surrey, British Columbia is being tied to yet another case of extortion. Police say violent gangs are behind an explosion of new attacks. Just 2 weeks into the new year, the city is already on track to surpass the total number of extortion cases in all of 2025. CTV's Andrew Johnson now on the alarming violence and what police are saying about it. Andrew.
Sandy, police and government are throwing all kinds of resources into stopping this violence, but experts say for those involved in organized crime, extortion is low-hanging fruit. Bullets fired into businesses, homes, and cars to intimidate victims into paying up. It's happening every few days to start 2026 in Metro Vancouver, the latest shooting this morning in Surrey.
We understand the impact this has, not only on people who are victimized, but the community at large. It's obviously concerning.
The victims, primarily South Asian business owners, receive a call or text demanding cash, or their family will be harmed. The criminals reference personal information and routines, like what time the victim's children get home from school.
Or else, if you will not pay, we'll kill your family.
It's also happening a lot in Ontario's Peel region, the site of an anti-extortion summit involving government and police last week. In some cases, officials say the suspects are taking direction from gangs in India. That's where BC Premier David Eby is this week on a trade mission that was criticized.
Surrey right now is going through a huge amount of extortion threats from India. Unless you start to address the issue and help us, then what's the point of doing any trading?
Experts say violent extortion has been historically attractive to gang members as a low investment for a potentially high reward.
Old school mafia, Hells Angels would do shakedowns. Now we're just seeing a technology change, I think, is where you can use social media to send the initial threat.
He adds the people pulling the trigger in extortion shootings are often victims themselves, vulnerable and recruited by gangs to do the dirty work. Sandy.
Andrew Johnson in Vancouver. Thank you, Andrew. And as we head to break, we thought you'd find the next story interesting. Donald Trump certainly isn't shying away from saying that he doesn't need cars from Canada. Well, a Canadian-made vehicle stole the show today in Detroit and was named Car of the Year. The Windsor-made Dodge Charger took home the 2026 North American Car of the Year honor at the auto show. Jurors had been test driving and evaluating vehicles using multiple criteria, including design and safety and performance. The president of the union that represents workers at the assembly plant calls it, quote, fantastic news and a real testament to employees and automotive company Stellantis. The spouse of Canada's worst mass shooter is breaking her silence in a CTV News special called Victim 1, The Survivor. Her name is Lisa Banfield, and she suffered years of abuse at the hands of Gabriel Wortman. That name sounds familiar. He is the Nova Scotia denturist who posed as an RCMP officer and murdered 22 people back in 2020. Now we're hearing from her for the first time in an exclusive television interview with CTV's Omar Sachedina. Omar joins us now. Omar, when I think about this, I think of someone who fell in love and then things go horribly wrong. What did she tell you?
That's exactly right. You know, this was a relationship that started innocently enough. It started off with a smile at a bar in Halifax. She said, I found him handsome. The two ended up together. And then within 6 months, she experienced an assault. It happened very quickly. He established a pattern, she says, of coercive control, started isolating her from her family. And eventually, of course, everything coming to a head in the early days of the pandemic when 22 people were senselessly massacred. I asked her why she wanted to speak now. Here's what she said. Why did you want to do this interview?
I want people to know that you can't judge anybody. Because when you're in that situation, you're being manipulated. When you're in it and you're just surviving.
She went from being victim number one to public enemy number one.
Lisa Banfield had no choice or option. She had no autonomy. I mean, she was being controlled 100% by her abuser.
And then he grabbed me by the hair and he's pulling me and he's like, get up. So I got up. And as soon as I got up, then he went like this and kicked me. I went down. It was just like, it killed me, right?
Omar, she said, don't judge anyone. She's talking about herself because she is also a victim. She's suffering trauma now as a result.
Absolutely, and people started blaming her for parts of this massacre as well, so she talks about that. She also talks about how she's living with survivor's guilt, essentially, and also living with her years of trauma for the abuse that she suffered. I asked her at the end, do you still love him? And can you forgive him? So you'll hear about that in the special as well.
Very powerful. Good on you for bringing this to everyone so we can see this and watch this as well. And let's remind our viewers that you can watch part one of the two-part series tonight on CTV National News with Omar. And the full 1 hour special called Victim 1, The Survivor will be broadcast Sunday night right after the NFL game on CTV and also on Crave. A vacant Winnipeg hotel dating back to the late 19th century will be demolished after fire tore through it, leaving the building a total loss. 200 people were forced to leave a nearby shelter as well. Now, the fire ripped through the Man-Win Hotel shortly after 4 a.m. It was left vacant last year after tenants were forced to leave over safety bylaws. Winnipeg's mayor says the building will have to be demolished.
We're not going to leave this pile of rubble as a pile of rubble. We'll be taking immediate action to demolish the remaining structure and to clear the site.
No injuries were reported and no determination of the cause of the fire just yet. Staff at a prison in Ontario uncovered something unexpected when they discovered a massive cache of contraband. Correctional Service Canada says the package contained alleged tobacco, marijuana, and a concentrated form of cannabis called shatter, all worth an estimated $140,000. The seizure happened at the Beaver Creek Institution in Gravenhurst, north of Toronto. Police have made multiple arrests in Ontario after a string of vape store robberies. Police west of Toronto shared this footage of a car and chain being used to rip off the grate of a storefront. The suspects then ransacked the place. 3 men have been arrested. Numerous break-and-enters are now being investigated by multiple Ontario police jurisdictions. After the break, an emotional reunion. Missing for months, how a BC family finally reconnected with their pooch. When I was a kid, I couldn't watch the film Lassie Come Home until Lassie came home, and that's why this next story resonates. It's an emotional reunion between a dog and its owners after the pet had been missing for nearly 2 months. Members of the North Shore Vancouver community pitched in, helping in the search. And that is Bammy, a 4-year-old Korean Jindo who spent 54 days alone on the North Shore. The rescue broke free from its leash on a walk and proved to be very difficult to track down.
We had traps set for her and we just couldn't get them in the right spots because she would never be in the same area.
The owners, of course, never lost hope. You never do. And eventually a breakthrough. The dog was spotted near a school, and professional searchers used a drone to pinpoint the exact location, tracking her down for a successful rescue.
Do not never ever give up to find the pet. Many people say dog or pet is family. Yes, I totally agree.
Bammy is now safely back home with her family, who refused every step of the way to accept the idea that their much-loved dog was gone for good. Totally understand that. Thank you for sharing your time with us this Wednesday. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Have a nice evening. Be well. Take care.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.